Have you ever stopped to think if the little choices we make every single day actually shape our entire destiny? Well, there's this ancient text from the Pali Canon, the Bālapaṇḍitasutta, and it gives a really stark, powerful answer. It lays out two paths, two completely different ways of living, and two very, very different outcomes that are determined entirely by what we choose to do. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll walk down the difficult path of what the text calls the fool, looking at the suffering it causes in this life and the pretty terrifying consequences later on. Then, we'll completely switch gears and explore the other road, the path of the wise, to see the happiness that comes from it. And finally, we'll bring it all back home and figure out what this ancient choice means for us, right here and right now. So the big idea in the Bālapaṇḍitasutta is that our experience of the world, it isn't random. It's not just luck. It's a direct result of our own thoughts, our own words, and our own actions. The text explains this whole concept through two main characters, you could say, the fool and the wise person. Let's start with the path of the fool. And here's the kicker. The text insists that the consequences aren't something you have to wait for. Nope. They start immediately, creating a kind of personal hell on earth long before there's any talk of an afterlife.
Okay, this is really important to get straight from the start. In this teaching, a bāla, or a fool, isn't someone with a low IQ. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It's anyone, no matter how smart or successful, who consistently does things that are harmful, unwholesome, and unskillful. It's all about what you do, not what you know.
The text boils this down into three things that are all connected: harmful thoughts, harmful speech, and harmful deeds. You can see how it's a chain reaction, right? One thing leads to the next, and together they build the entire foundation of this person's life. And all of this leads to this constant internal torment. The fool is always anxious because anytime someone talks about wrongdoing, it's a painful reminder of their own actions. They live in fear because they see people getting punished and think, oh no, that could be me. And then at the very end of their life, all they have is this profound regret, where the weight of their past actions just hangs over them like a terrifying dark shadow. But the story doesn't end when life does. The text says that the momentum of all these harmful actions is so powerful that it carries the fool's consciousness forward into an existence that's even more difficult. This destination is called niraya. Now, the text is clear, this isn't a place of punishment from some angry external judge. It's described as the natural, unavoidable outcome of your own actions, an experience that is completely undesirable, unpleasant, and just disagreeable. To give you a sense of the scale here, the sutta asks us to imagine the pain of being pierced by 300 spears in one day. Sounds awful, right? Well, it says that pain, compared to the suffering of niraya, is like a tiny pebble in your hand next to the entire Himalayan mountain range. The comparison is just meant to be mind-boggling. The descriptions that follow are super vivid, very metaphorical. They use this intense imagery, like the five-fold impalement or being boiled in a cauldron, to try and communicate a state of just overwhelming suffering. And this goes on and on until the negative energy from those past actions is totally exhausted. So, after that karmic slate is wiped clean, what happens next? What are the odds of returning to a human life? Well, to answer that, the sutta gives us one of the most famous similes in all of Buddhist literature. To explain the odds, we're asked to imagine something pretty wild. First, picture our entire planet covered by one single gigantic ocean. There's no land anywhere, just water as far as the eye can see. Now, someone throws a single wooden yoke, with one hole in it, onto the surface of this massive ocean. And winds from the east, west, north, and south are just blowing it all over the place, totally at random. And living way down at the bottom of this ocean is a blind sea turtle. This turtle only comes up to the surface to get a breath of air once every 100 years. So here's the punchline. The Buddha says that the chance of that one blind turtle coming up once a century, happening to put its head through that one little yoke drifting on a world-size ocean, is actually better than the chance for a fool to be reborn as a human. It's a metaphor for something so rare it's basically impossible. Okay, that was pretty bleak, I know. But remember, that's only one of the paths. The sutta spends just as much time laying out the alternative, the life of the paṇḍita, the wise person. And just like the fool, the paṇḍita isn't defined by being a genius. A wise person is anyone who makes a point to cultivate skillful actions, actions that come from kindness, from clarity, and from a genuine desire for the well-being of themselves and everyone around them. I mean, the contrast couldn't be more clear, right? The wise person consciously chooses the opposite path. They cultivate good thoughts, they use good speech, and they perform good deeds. It's a perfect mirror image of the fool's life. And this, of course, results in 3 immediate kinds of happiness. First, there's confidence. When they hear about good deeds, they feel joy, knowing they've acted in similar ways. Then there's peace. They see lawbreakers and feel totally secure because they know they're innocent. And finally, serenity. At the end of life, their memories of good actions are a source of comfort and fearlessness, not terror and regret. So it's no surprise that the journey of the wise person after death is as different from the fool's as night and day. The momentum from all their good actions carries them to a truly blissful rebirth. This destination is called saga, which you can think of as a heavenly realm. And again, it's not a reward from some outside force. It is the natural, pleasant, and desirable result of a life lived skillfully. To try and describe this level of happiness, the sutta uses the analogy of a mythical wheel-turning monarch. This is supposed to be the most fortunate human you can possibly imagine, someone who possesses 7 magical treasures, like a flying elephant and a jewel that grants wishes. And yet, all the joy and power that comes from those 7 amazing treasures, literally the peak of earthly happiness, compared to the bliss of saga, you guessed it, it's just another tiny pebble next to the towering Himalayas. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The Bālapaṇḍitasutta isn't just an ancient story about heaven and hell. It's really a profound psychological and ethical map. It's arguing that you are the architect of your own experience in every single moment. The final message here is one of radical responsibility. We are not fated to be a bāla or a paṇḍita. We become one or the other through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. This ancient text simply shines a light on the 2 paths and asks a question that is just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. Which way will you walk?